may be seated. My name is Bernard, and welcome to the Collective. And this is week 2 of a 4-week series on relationships. Last week I spoke about sex. This is week 2, and I have with me my wife of 29 years. Jeannette is up here with me because today we want to talk to you about the anatomy of love, and we want to talk to you about marriage and what that looks like. Next week we're going to have Miss Sarah, who's going to talk to us about singleness. And then 2 weeks' time, Pastor Alex is going to talk to us about friendship. And so it's been wonderful. And today we want to talk to you about the anatomy of love. And if you ask most people what makes a happy marriage, a successful marriage, what is that? Well, it's just two people in love. Then you ask, well, what does love look like? And nobody knows how to define love. We don't know if love's a feeling, whether it's is it a decision? Is it a feeling? What is love? And so love is hard to define, and love is hard to wrap our minds and hearts around. What is it? And somebody said, well, love is kind of like lightning. You don't really know what it is until it strikes you. Took a while for that to settle in, but so we want to look at the anatomy of love, and over the last 35 to 40 years, a lot of research, a lot of study has been done, more so in the history of mankind than the last 35, 40 years. And Jeannette and I do a lot of pre-marriage counseling. We do a lot of marriage counseling. And we read a lot, we watch a lot, we listen a lot, we learn a lot. We've never stopped learning. And one of the books that we were reading and just helping couples prepare for marriage is a book and a series called Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. And so in part of that book, it talked about Robert Sternberg, who is he was a Yale professor at the time, and he came up with a triangular model of love. And it just really struck me, and it said, and I thought, wow, this is wonderful to help us all have a paradigm or to have some kind of framework for what is love, what actually would help us in relationships, what would help us in marriage, what would help us as couples to understand this much, much better. And it gave us some words and some terminology that I want to share with you this morning. And then Jeannette and I want to just dig into a little bit deeper into the relationship side of things, and specifically on intimacy and how we can learn. So Robert Sternberg, as I said, he came up with a triangular theory of love, and I want to just put it up on the screen, and I just want to touch on some points, but you're going to notice that at the top of the triangle there is something called intimacy. And so there were 3 components to love: intimacy, passion, and commitment. Intimacy, passion, and commitment. And at any given time in relationships, especially when we're talking about romantic relationships and eventually perhaps marriage, you're looking at different phases and you're looking at different components of love. But intimacy, passion, and commitment. And if all you have at the top of the triangle is intimacy, it's called liking. He called it liking. It's just you have pizza with friends, or you go to the gym with friends. There's some stories shared, some life experience together, but you don't have any passion towards one another. You're not committed to any long-term relationship. Intimacy was defined as the emotional side of love. It was the soulmate and the connectedness and the friendship and all of that. The passion side was the biological side of love. Passion was the physical attraction and the fireworks in the belly. That kind of thing was the passion. And commitment was, I'm committed to this relationship, whatever that looks like. And of course, when you're first starting out, commitment looks like friending them on Facebook or following them, right? That's about the commitment. Or I'm in a relationship, that's your commitment. And so as these intimacy, passion, and commitment, as they move through different stages and different phases of our lives and in our life, they become different things. And so if you just have intimacy, it's called liking. It's just friendship. If you just have passion, you have a crush. You have an infatuation towards this person. And if that doesn't develop into intimacy where you are sharing life and you are getting to know one another, it's just the infatuation. And that infatuation or that crush can leave you within a couple of weeks or a couple of months, whatever, if all you have is passion. if you just have commitment and you have no intimacy and you have no passion, this is oftentimes what happens over time, where you don't have the intimacy, you don't have a friendship or a passion, you're not drawn to one another, you're not holding hands, you're not showing any affection towards one another physically. It's just an empty love. And sad to say, many, many marriages end up here because we're not being intentional on the passion or on the intimacy side. We're not developing our friendship. We're not sharing life together. Kids come along, circumstances happen, and you're in an empty kind of love. And that's a hard place to be in when there's no friendship and there's no physical attraction to one another anymore. But there's other combinations. One of them is when you do have intimacy and you have commitment. He called it companionate love. And many marriages are here where you are developing intimacy and friendship, and you're learning to be with one another, and you're spending time together. And you do have commitment. You're committed to one another. You're committed to the Lord. You're committed to the relationship. But the physical side of things has waned off. And oftentimes this can happen because she's had 2 or 3 kids. And when you want something else, and she's like, if you even look at me, I'll kill you. That kind of thing. And so we need to understand that these are not static states of a relationship, but they're very fluid. In different seasons of our life, we go through different stages of a relationship. When you have passion and commitment, it's called a fatuous love. And what he meant by a fatuous love is similar to what Chris Humphries and Kim Kardashian had. They had a lot of passion. They were physically attracted to one another. They had a commitment because they actually got married, and within 72 days, they were divorced. They had a fatuous love. They didn't really know one another very much. And then in the middle, and this is what I want to call your attention, and we're going to just focus here for a little bit today, and that is consummate love, where you do have intimacy together, and you do have the passion for one another. You're still holding hands. You're still having those date nights and intimacy, and you're also committed. And he called it the consummate love, where you do have intimacy, you do have passion, and you do have commitment. And this is the goal, and this is where we all want to be. And I believe that today, what we're going to help you do is we're just going to focus on the top part of the triangle, intimacy. Intimacy. And I want to make sure that we all in the room, and whether you're single today, I really do believe, because we're going to talk about differences between the genders, and we're going to talk about some of that. So there's things that can apply, things that you can learn. You can always be in the learning mode about relationships. Amen? And so I just want you to just be aware of that. Now, cultivating intimacy. What is intimacy? What do we even mean by intimacy? And I just want to put some things up on the screen for you. But before we go to cultivating intimacy, I want you to think in terms of, why would I want to cultivate intimacy with, or why is it even worth it? And I believe that Philippians chapter 2, even though it is not written about marriage, and it's not written concerning relationships as we're talking about it today, but listen to Philippians chapter 2 when Paul says, don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others. And when we're talking about relationships or romantic relationships, husbands need to take interest not only in their own interest, but in the interest of their spouse, and vice versa. Wife, you need to take an interest in your husband's interests. And he says we do this by having the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. I believe our motivation is Christ. I believe our motivation and what we're pointing to is how Christ treats us and how he wants us to operate and be in relationship with one another. And so for some time, we're just going to talk about, what does it mean about intimacy? If intimacy and passion and commitment are 3 components of love, what is intimacy? And I just want us to have a common understanding, at least for this talk, about what I'm talking about in intimacy. And so definition of intimacy is the emotional side of the love's triangle, as we looked at intimacy, passion, and commitment. Continue. The next. It says intimacy has that best friend quality. It's we all want someone. And even if you don't know you want this, I'm telling you, God designed you and built you to want this. We all want somebody who knows us better than anyone else and still accepts us. This is a basic human need at the core of our being. And oftentimes that someone is God. And how much are we grateful to him that he knows us inside and out and he still accepts us. But when you have that with another human being, it takes it even a step further. And we all want someone who holds nothing back from us, but someone that can trust us with their heart and with their frailties and their fears and their brokenness. And how many of you know that that takes risk? Love always takes risk. Vulnerability, authenticity, intimacy takes risk. The word for intimacy is into me, see. And how many of you know it's risky to allow another person to see what's going on in your life? But I'm here to tell you that it's worth the risk. Intimacy is always worth the risk. When you find intimacy with another person, it's always worth the risk, because then you can truly be a human being. You can truly live out of an authentic place. You can truly be intimate. I want to just go on to the last little phrase where it says, intimacy fills the heart's deepest longing for closeness and acceptance. And when couples know each other intimately, they are well versed in each other's likes, dislikes, personalities, quirks, hopes, and dreams. Now, for the next several minutes, we're just going to talk about how can we develop intimacy? How can we cultivate intimacy in our relationships? And we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between how guys do that, how women do that. And I'm just going to invite my wife. Would you just give her a little show of appreciation and encouragement? She talks to us a little bit about cultivating intimacy.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to read some things because I don't want you to miss what we have studied, yeah? So actually, intimacy is that issue where you are in a relationship where you can understand, love, and appreciate what is at the core of at the emotional level of your partner. That is the time when you really know your person, when you need to know that person and accept that person at the core. Not because they are perfect, not because they have done everything right, but when you love somebody, when you accept that person and appreciate that person for who that person is. The problem is that it just doesn't happen automatically. I don't get to know you in a day. Bernard and I have been married this year 30 years, and we are the best friends now more than ever before. But it just didn't happen. We had to work at it. We have studied. We had to put things into practice. We have developed this relationship, but we have to put the work into it. And so it's just not going to happen, darlings. I'm telling you, it's just not going to happen overnight. There is a work to do, and it's something that we cannot stop doing. The key is to acknowledge that, but also appreciating your husband or your wife for who they are. What you don't understand is that the person that you are at this moment, in this moment of time, moment by moment, is that you are an accumulation of experiences, of your family, of your upbringing, of your story. What happened to you? You are that person today. And how can I say that who I am is better than who you are? But if I accept that who you are is who you are with your history, with what happened to you with your family, the roles and the rules that you have learned when you grew up, how am I to say that my roles and rules are better than his? Correct? Yes? You get that? So I have to acknowledge that, and I want to appreciate that. Because the person that Bernard is with all his background. And that is who he is. And I want to get to know that. And at the same time, I want to get to appreciate that, because that's the person that he is right now. So how we are affected by the upbringing of our families, how we are affected by being male and female, our personalities, and there is just your history, your stories, even in your family. If you have a sibling or a twin, you still think differently. Even you live at the same house all the time and did the same things, you analyze life in a different way than even your brother or sister that live in the same home. Can you imagine another person from another country, like Bernard, because I'm from Venezuela, he's from Pittsburgh, you understand, can you imagine the differences? But what God has worked in us is to acknowledge and appreciate that difference. Now let me tell you one of the things that we learned. So how the family has influenced you is something that you have to be aware. So I give you one example. So when I asked permission to share this story, by the way. So when I met Bernard, yeah, because I want to honor him. I don't want to put him down. Yeah, I love him. Oh, yeah. So when I met Bernard, in his family, when they ate beef, you know, like a steak, they put the fork, like the beef was going to run away. So they're holding that thing, you know, and cutting. My father, he was a very fine man. He worked on television. He had traveled over the world. His favorite city was Paris. You know, he was like a fine man. And I say, if I bring that man like that, why he's going to say no way? Because he doesn't know how to cut meat.
As if there is a right way to cut meat. I'm not sure.
There is a right way to cut meat.
Go.
Sorry, there is a right way, okay? So,
I have no problem with it.
So, okay, I mean, that sounds silly, but how many people fight about those things? Think about your relationship. You fight about the stupidest thing that are there. Now, that sounds silly, but let's talk about something that we experienced. When in my family is acceptable to slam doors. If you were angry, wow, we slam doors. And then we were called to dinner. Kids, like on to it. We talked like nothing had happened. I applied the same rule with Bernard, and he did not talk to me for 3 days.
We didn't slam doors in our house.
Not only that, they don't slam doors, but they keep everything in while we kept everything out. How do you think that worked out for us? Yeah, that we started our marriage with that kind of thing. Slamming doors, not talking to me. I'm like, he's a Christian, he's supposed to love me.
Not if you slam doors, I don't.
Oh man, that was horrible. So can you imagine, multiply that, but 1,000 things that you live through your life uniquely to you, and you marry somebody that has 1,000 million times the same thing, with his own uniqueness, with his own experiences, with his own rules, education. Is it important education to you? How many kids? What kids? What are the kids going to do? In my house, we had to go to college. You have to go to the university. In his family, it was not the thing. You understand? Those little things, even though you think they are silly, they kill a marriage. They kill the relationship. You know why? Because I want you to be like me. And my roles and my rules are the best. But who says that? Who says that? You know what it takes? It takes lots of humility to acknowledge that and then appreciate the differences. It's just who he is, and he's who I am. Is it right or wrong? I'm not sure, but I'm going to tell you, that kills the marriage. When we are in that competition to establish something that is not even important. You understand? So we had to grow with that. So I am going to share something else, okay? This is going to impress you. I hope it impresses you. It does.
That's what we're here to do, impress you.
Because I am a scientist. No, it's because I am a scientist, yeah? And so I like numbers and I like facts, okay? So here we go. Listen, women's brains are 36% larger in the front and 38% in the men are in the back. Men's brain have 6 times more white matter. So what? Well, that's why they can compartmentalize things. They think work, they think this, they think that, because they have more gray matter. That is how their brain are function, yeah? Women have more white matter, 10 times more white matter than men, and this is like the internet connection. Yeah? So women are thinking like that because we have more white matter. So those things make a difference, yeah? Look at this. Men and women speak 16,000 words a day. Women speak language of emotions laden with memory. We always remember everything. because it's attached to an emotion. Meanwhile, men talk about facts, actions, and result, okay? Women's brains are designed to link words, emotions, and memory. Men's brains are designed to separate words, emotions, and memories. Isn't that crazy? Next one. His brain is built to see conversation as a means to an end. Her brain is built to see talking as the end. That's why we talk and talk and talk and talk. And my husband is like, get to the point. What is the point? What is the solution? Give me the point. What is the point of the story? Meanwhile,
guys, isn't that right? Why do we have to talk so much? Just solve a problem and let's get on.
Okay, meanwhile, we have to talk about everything. So we go to the supermarket and I saw this person, but in this person, you know my grandmother, no, my auntie, my neighbor. We go all over, and after we have been all over the world, we go to the point. Yes! Males have fewer circuits in the verbal, emotional, and conversational center, and more circuits between the problem solving and the action taking. So here it is. You come to your husband, you talk, 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 and he is not getting it. Because we are, ladies, the majority, again, we cannot put everybody in a box, but the majority of us women we talk to process. We talk because we need to process. We don't know the answer. Meanwhile, he's offering solution. Okay, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that. And then, I'm going to say, marriages get in trouble because they don't know this and they don't accept this. Yes? And he has to listen to a 45-minute conversation that is just not going anywhere. And then he's trying to offer solutions. Okay, you can do that. And he's like, just listen. Don't fix me. Don't fix me. Just listen. Now, of course, there has to be a balance in the marriage. Because at some point, he's going to have to listen to you because he's your best friend. He is your partner. And you want him to know what's going on in your life. But at the same time, ladies, Bernard taught me this. In reality, he will say, get to the point, get to the point, get to the point. We didn't get a divorce for that, so we are, thank God, we are still married, including that. So do you see this? You see that those little differences that are big differences? Because the majority of the problems in the marriage are about those differences. It's how you see life and how your partner see life. But it takes humility. It really takes humility to be in this together because we want this to work. We want this to work. And so we are working in that. So
I just want to just interject one thing, right?
It's okay. That's
so just
life.
Keep in mind Philippians chapter 2 when he says, do not look out for your own interest, but look out for the interest of others. Have the same attitude that Christ Jesus has. So as a man, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, well, we're right and they're wrong, that's the wrong attitude.
Yes.
Because it's not about right or wrong, it's about being different.
Yes.
And God wired women in his image. He created them male and female. And the more that as a man you can understand about female, then it gives us an opportunity to trust Jesus to actually understand and actually meet the needs of our female, of our partner. Are you there? And the same thing with females, as Jeannette talks to you in just a minute about what a man needs, it's the same thing. These may not be your needs as a female, but men need these things.
Yes.
And females, I'll talk to the guys, they need these things.
Yes.
And so, again, we're taking the attitude that was in Christ and we're looking out not only for our own interest and needs, but if the interest and needs of our partner.
Okay, so we're going to talk about meeting each other's needs. And I'm going to talk to the ladies about what your men needs. And girls, in your future, I know that some of you are not married or some of you are engaged or whatever, you need to listen to this because you need to, when you are going to develop a relationship with somebody, these things still apply there. Yeah. When are you going to start developing intimacy? When you have the ring in and you have your first fight? Or you can start now. Yes, together you can start now saying, guys, you need to develop this. Okay, now, don't wait till you have the ring in the finger, okay? So what wife needs to know about their husband? There are many things, but I'm going to narrow into 3. Number 1, he needs admiration, and being appreciated is a man's primary need. The man needs to be appreciated. Why? Because men are doers of things. They are achievers, okay? And when you compliment their achievement, you are feeding into what God created them to be. For us women, it's not who we are. I'm a mom, I am this, I am that. But for men, it's important their achievement. And who is the best person to encourage that but you? And so because we don't have the attitude of Christ, and we think, I don't need that, so why I'm going to do that? Of course I need encouragement. Yeah, no 100% zero encouragement. But because it is so important for the guy, why not to be an encourager? You should be the cheerleader of your husband. And say, yes, husband, yes. You understand? We should be the greatest cheerleader of them. And why? Because they are wired for that. And it takes humility to be able to do that without feeling low. And so sometimes, of course, he has to be honest. Yes, it has to be honest, thanking him and saying, that was great. And I'm going to say to the ladies, if you have a son and he's 3 years old, and you say, oh, baby, draw this line, and the line is like this, you are going to say, oh, my God, that was amazing. Would you do that for your son? Of course, because you love him. And when your husband does something little, why not to encourage him? I know that you can do it.
So you're a lady.
Of course. Do something.
So you're a lady and you're thinking, yeah, I do that for my 3-year-old son. Why does he need that? He's a grown man. Well, I can tell you this, and I'm going to stand up to tell you, ladies. Listen, a man never outgrows his need to be appreciated, to be admired. God wired us as achievers and accomplishers and conquerors.
Yes.
And when you, as the person who is next and near and dear to our souls, says, I appreciate what you do, it puts wind in our wings. It builds us up like no one else can. And I use this often as my illustration of how Jeannette encourages me or appreciates me. Oftentimes after the first service at 8:30, I have a lot of things going on in my mind, and I'm usually thinking that was the worst message I have ever preached. Everyone just left here. They'll never come back to church. I don't even know why I'm doing this. And then I will go to my wife, very, very vulnerable, very, very weak, very, very, and I will say, so how was the message? And she'll say, that was the best message I ever heard you preach. And all of a sudden, it's like, Superman cape comes on. And then at the 10 o'clock service, I'm here to preach the gospel.
Yes, yes.
And a guy does not ever outgrow the
Yes.
words, I appreciate that, thank you, I really saw what you did, and I really appreciate that. A guy is never going to outgrow that. And ladies, when you do it genuinely.
Yes.
And even if it's, hey, thank you so much just for breathing today, just go there. Start there. Thanks so much for breathing and not leaving us all alone.
So the comparison is like this. How would you like him to tell you when you are emotional with your PMS, and he will say to you, get over it, that's nothing. How would you feel about your emotions? You understand? So it's the same thing. He doesn't understand PMS, okay? He doesn't understand what we go through.
I know PMS enough to know that it means pre-murder syndrome. I do know that. I do know that much.
So do you see that? Even though it is what they need. And so why not to give it to him? Why not to admire him? When Bernard pays my bill, my phone bill, I always thank him. I say, thank you for doing that. Yeah, because he's the one who takes the time to do all this thing for me. Why not to thank him? That I have to appreciate the things that he does for me. So that is one thing.
And I'd appreciate you go to the next line.
Next one. Oh, boy. Okay. Number 2, from all the things that he needs, number 2, he needs to have time alone. Ooh, all married couple knows that.
You better qualify that.
Yes. When he comes home from work, and all you want to do is talk, and he is like, I don't want to talk to you right now. I understood that very early in our marriage, thank God, because I remember he would take naps. Now, in my family, we took naps. My mom would say, if you take a nap, you are lazy. And I married somebody that needed to take a nap. Wow, can you imagine the conflict in my heart? But then I read, because I like to study, so I read that his personality, he needed to come home and shut down. You see, because men don't process verbally, and they process in their box, they tend to go silent, and they need that. So why not to give him some time to go silent and wait till he processes? Because you process verbally, and you say, how was your day? How was your day? How was your day? How was your day?
Fine.
And he's like, give me a break. I want to talk about my day. And that is our difference. So we can appreciate that. But of course, he cannot shut down all day and play games. He doesn't play games. But I'm saying maybe you play games and you come home and you want to play your game or do something. Okay, maybe that's your way to shut down. And then after you shut down and you are re-energized, then you can go and talk to your wife. And so knowing this difference has saved us a lot. Because when I come and he needs a time out and time by himself, I have to respect that. Again, it doesn't mean that he's going to do that all night. Okay, guys? Yes? But ladies, you have to ask, is this a good time? Is this a good time to talk? Or can you give me a 15 minutes later? You know, can you talk to me for 15 minutes? No computer, no phones, no anything, just the two of us. Clear? That's going to save you a lot of heartaches. Next one. He needs shared activities.
With no talking.
With no talking. With no talking, ladies. So here is, because we get energized by, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. We get energized by that. He doesn't get energized by that. He gets energized by being together. You have to find what is the activity that you like together as a couple. For us, we like to go to the gym. We have our thing. You understand? It was not like that at the beginning, but I'm telling you, that is how to build an intimacy. Work it out. Find out. You like to do this? Maybe try something else. Okay, I don't know. You have to find it for your own relationship and for your personal situation. For us, we already know a lot of things that we can do together without talking and enjoying each other's company. Is that okay?
So I feel very energized when Jeannette just comes to the gym with me, even though sometimes we're doing two different routines in two separate parts of the room. I just feel energized as a guy that my best friend is with me. So doing things with her energizes me. If she starts asking me a lot of questions, it drains me. So you need to figure out what those activities, and women, there's going to be times, and I'm going to address this in just a moment, when he is going to listen to you, and you are going to be able to share, and you are going to be able to talk. But when you're doing shared activities and you're trying to meet his need, just remember it's shared activities with very limited talking. It's like shared activity and breathing. That's what energizes us. So I'm going to go on to talk to the guys just about some of the needs of women. And again, we're making generalizations, but it's generally true about most men. It's generally true about most women. And Sigmund Freud, most of us have heard of Sigmund Freud. He said this, he wrote this many years ago. He says, he was the father of psychoanalysis, and he said, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, I have not yet been able to figure out or to answer the great question, what does a woman want? The question of the ages, what does a woman want? But there has been more research in this area over the last 35 or 40 years than ever in human history. And so basically, through a lot of research, women have three basic needs. Now, this is not for every woman. Of course, there's always variations of all of this. But the number one need of a woman is that she needs to be cherished. And what that means is she needs to know she's number one in your life. Guys, I'm talking to you. And so that may look very, very differently. What does it look for your woman? I'm not sure what it looks for. My woman wants me to say, I love you. And I love you. And that's been really, really hard because I don't want to say I love you. I want to show you that I love you. I want to do things for you. I want to serve you, or I want to pay your phone bill as my way of saying I love you. And she's saying that's not what I want. I want you to say I love you. So during the day when when I just text her and it's 3 o'clock, and hey, I'll be home, how are you? It's telling her I'm checking in and you're on my mind. I'm thinking about you. And that helps her to realize that you are cherishing her. You're cherishing the relationship. You're thinking about her. And these simple ways, you can show her that if you had to choose, and this is the heart of being cherished as a woman. I'm not a woman, I'm a guy, right? So listen, if she knows that if you had to make a choice between a night out with your buddies or a night out with her, you would choose her every time. That's cherishing your woman. Now, I can tell you that if I had to choose, I would choose my wife. And this has not always been the case. 29 years in, I can say that Jeannette is my best friend. But it took intentionality, it took work, and it's a lot of the ebb and flow of a relationship. And we're in a different season now. But I think the goal is that I want to be with her. And I think the goal is that consummate love where you have intimacy and passion and commitment, and it's coming together as you really do want to be with one another. The second need of a woman is that she needs to be heard. She needs to be heard. She needs to be known. So I just want to put a very common conversation between a male and a female, and here it is. I have been pouring my heart out to you for the last 15 minutes, and all you have done is sit there and give me advice. And then the guy says, yes. I thought to myself, what's wrong with that? I don't need advice, she continues. I need to be understood. I cannot tell you in 29 years how many times Jeannette has said these words. You're not listening to my heart. You're not listening to my heart. And so I had to learn, and I learned this about 8 years ago. So that means we had 21 years of missing it. So 8 years ago, I learned this question to ask when we were going to sit down, and we weren't doing a shared activity, but it was time to listen and time to talk and time to listen. And I asked this question: do you want me to listen, or do you want me to offer a solution? And 99.9% of the time it is, no, I just need you to listen. I just need you to listen, because what men want to do is, how is our brains wired? Our brains are wired to offer solutions. Our brains are wired to listen to our woman talk, tuck, 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 tuck. And while she's talking about all these unrelated, seemingly unrelated things, and the guy's brain is like, oh my God, which one do I handle? How can we solve all these problems? But she's not listening. She's not looking for you to offer a solution or to fix her. If you try to fix her, she's going to want to kill you. So we are learning to listen, and then perhaps after 3 hours, after 15 minutes, after 10 minutes, hey, can we try to work out a solution here? Are you ready for that? Sometimes it just takes a while for her to get there. Why? Because a woman's words are wrapped with so much emotion and memory. A guy's brain is not wired that way. We're wired to look for solutions, to solve problems, to conquer, to achieve. Women's brains are wired for relationship. Amen?
Yeah.
And the last.
Nothing wrong with that.
And
nothing
it's not wrong or right.
It's not wrong or right.
It's just different. And I'm telling you, if you could just walk out of this room thinking not wrong, it's not right or wrong, we're just different. If you could just walk out of the room with that,
and
it would be well worth it.
Appreciate it. That is the key. Appreciate that difference.
And this is the final one. She needs to feel included. She needs to feel valued or respected. And the very simple illustration of what it means for a woman to feel included, valued, respected is just asking her in the whole decision-making processes, asking her opinion, including her in decisions, including her in what you're feeling, what you're thinking through. Respecting your wife means including her. And can you just put this up? It means build your wife's self-esteem. Next slide. Self-esteem and sense of security by asking for her input whenever you can, even on the small things. And the next one is, when you make a decision that might affect her, you can say, or your children, you can say, I'm thinking about, what do you think? I'm thinking that we should. What would you like to see in this? And asking her opinion. She makes her feel valued, respected. I cannot tell you the times that I have made decisions that I have not included my wife. And you know what it feels like? To her, it feels like disrespect, like I don't value her opinion, like I don't value her as a person. And I cannot tell you how many times I've made decisions without including her, and it's like the air of her soul is just sucked out. And it's just like, oh, you just don't value me, you don't respect me, you don't love me. And we're back to that again. Oh my God, I do love you. Oh my God, I do. You know, we're back to square one again because I didn't include her. I didn't ask her for her opinion. Now, I just want to end our time together, and I just want to remind us that what is the motivation for all of this? Well, the motivation is Christ. The motivation is, and it's in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21. These are very, very controversial, and I would say they're very misunderstood, and that's the reason they're controversial. But in verse 21 of Ephesians 5, when Paul was talking in the context of being filled with the Spirit, he says in verse 21, and further submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. What we do in relationships is out of what? It's out of reverence for Christ. What does that even mean? It means that all that God has done in Christ for you is what we are to do for one another. How much more so in the relationship of a marriage? And he's saying that it is mutual submission. Do you see that? Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. It all flows from our mutual submission. What does that mean? It means mutually appreciating our differences, mutually appreciating that you have a different need than I do, and my need is not better than your need, it's just different. And I'm going to do what I can because of my reverence for Christ and all that he's done for me to meet her need, and she's going to do that out of reverence for Christ because I deserve it or because I appreciate her every time? No, but it's out of our reverence for Christ and what he's done for us. He goes on in verse 22 and he says these words to wives. He says, for wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. And in our day and age, we're like, what? What did he even say? What does that even mean? For the husband is head of the wife, as Christ is head of the church. He is the Savior of the body, the church. Now, I just need to just put some context to this. Listen, when Paul wrote this 2,000 years ago, ladies, women were their husband's possession and property. The husband had legal jurisdiction over his wife and his children. They were pretty much a possession. And Paul just said in verse 21, I want you to mutually submit to one another. And when he wrote verses 22 and 23, it was like the Jews and the Roman and the Greek world, it was like, tell us something we don't know. If she doesn't submit, he'll just throw her out or sell her to someone else. It's just his property. They were like, in our day and age, it's like, huh? Women submit to your husbands. In their day and age, it was like, duh, tell us something we don't know. And the real aha moment, the real shocker was not, wives, submit to your husbands. And by the way, it's a mutual submission. It never gives a man a right to tell his wife what to do, to lord it over her. In fact, Jesus will teach the exact opposite of what authority means. Even more so in marriage. But in verse 24 and verse 25, listen what he tells the husbands. In verse 25, he says, husbands, this means, and here's the shocker to the Gentile world. Here's the shocker in all of this. Husbands, this means love your wives. How? Just as Christ loved the church, he gave up his life for her. Do you know how radical that statement is? It's like me telling this group of men, I want you to love your car. I want you to lay down your life for your car. You should wash your car. You should care for your car. You should check the tires on your car. You should change the oil on your car. Your car is very, very valuable. You should love it just as Christ loved the church. What would you all be thinking? It's just a thing. It's just an object. I don't need to do that. And that's how they were thinking about women. This is how radical this is.
And he's saying, I want you to love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up. How do we love our wives, guys? By meeting their needs, by laying down what is very natural and very common to our male brains and saying, I'm going to love this woman by listening to her. I'm going to love her by cherishing her just as Christ cherishes me. You see, our example is not the commandments. The example is Jesus. He says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church. How does Christ love you? Does he accept you in all of your quirks and all of your mess? And does he accept you? Yes, and in the same way, we are to accept one another. Out of what? Out of reverence for Christ. And so we love because he first loved us. We forgive because we've been forgiven. We serve because he has served us. See, our motivation is Christ. We're submitted to him out of reverence to Christ. We're submitted to one another out of our reverence for Christ. When Jesus is talking about headship and he's talking about how we are to lead, men, listen to this, and women, listen to this. It says this in Mark, when his disciples, those followers of Christ, they were bickering who has the position, who's going to have the authority, who's going to have the power. And if still in your brain you're still thinking, but I'm the head of the wife, I get to tell her what to do, I tell her, da-da-da-da. Listen what Jesus would say to leadership. He says this, Jesus called them together and he says, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people. And officials flaunt their what? Their authority over those what? Under them. She's not under you, guys. She's with you. She's beside you. We are mutually submitted and over them. And then next one. But among you, Christian, it will be different. Whoever wants to be leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave or the servant of everyone else. Do you see how this works? Jesus puts power. It's not power over, it's power to serve. It's power for, it's not power over. Our motivation is Christ and what he's done for us. The motivation in our relationships is what Christ has done for us. We are to model and we are to emulate what he's done for us to one another. I want to pray for you. I know that there are so many marriages and people in this room, and we've had different experiences, and wherever you fall today, maybe you're in a marriage today and it's just that empty love. There's no passion, there's no intimacy. I'm here to tell you that Christ can help us. Christ can move the needle. We can work towards consummate love where there is passion, there is intimacy, there is commitment. Jesus wants to work in our hearts, but it does take humility. It does take his grace. It takes us to be willing to change, to learn, to grow, to evolve as people. But he's always with us. His grace is always extended to us. And I just want to pray for you as we close our time together. Lord, this message touches on so many different issues, and I just pray that each one, Lord, that whatever it is that they are to really grab hold of, whatever it is that you're speaking to them. And Lord, I pray specifically for the couples who are married. Lord, I just pray that you would show them how to not only acknowledge one another's differences, and maybe for some it's an aha, it's an eye-opening to say, wow, we are that different, but to appreciate those differences and to grow in their intimacy and in their friendship. And for guys to lay down the way they think, and for the woman to lay down the way she thinks takes such humility. But Lord, I pray that we would submit to one another out of our reverence for you and what you've done for us and how you've accepted us and how you love us through all of our quirks and all of our fears and insecurities. So Jesus, I would pray for couples, for singles, Lord, as they're learning and becoming the person that one day will also be in relationships. We thank you so much for your grace toward us. In your precious name I pray.